Welcome to another episode of Stupid Simple Hacks, showing you just how simple it can be to hack your way to a better website, business, and life. And now your host, Keith Hearn.
Welcome back to another episode of Stupid Simple Hacks. Today I want to go through some ways to hack the creative brain. Now, anybody who's in the creative field has probably run into it at some point or another where they've ran into just a creative wall where they can't decide on what to do next, how to solve a certain problem. Writer's block is a form of that. And again, that could be designing something, even playing music, all those kinds of things. Creative people can have these blocks sometimes and just don't know how to get out of it. So I came up with a list of a few different things that you can do to get around that creative block and to really hack the brain to become more creative. One of the first concepts is to just borrow ideas. Now, this is something that I would tell my students when I teach graphic design is always do research before you get started designing something. Go out there and look and see what other people are doing. Find examples that are similar to what you're trying to do. And a lot of times that's going to spark an idea for you that you can then turn into your own idea. Now, there's the old adage that there are no original ideas, and that's so true because you can really see anything that you think is unique and creative, and you can probably find similar things to that probably inspired that design. That happens in the music world too, or even writing. All these places you can find similar examples of where maybe that original story, that musical piece, or that design came from. So again, if you get stuck on something, look around. The other thing that I would tell them to do is if you're looking for an idea for a website, look at different print designs, look at different movie posters, do something that's different than what you're actually looking in. So if you're looking to design a website, looking at other websites is a good start, but again, you can kind of get pigeonholed into a certain look. Looking at other things that are similar but in a different genre or in a different medium can really help you break out and find something that's original to you. Now, this one's kind of a simple one in concept, but when you reach the point where you're just not feeling creative anymore, get up and take a walk. Now, this does a couple different things for you. Now, for one, it gets the blood flowing, which again helps with creativity and just all around feeling better. Two, it actually gets you out of your environment and into somewhere else where you may be inspired by different ideas or things that you see. It also just helps to just take a break from what you're looking at or doing or listening to and give you some time to really absorb it and think about it without being focused on actually trying to solve it at that moment. Now, it's been known that people like Albert Einstein would go for bike rides or for walks to actually help take the time to sit there and really think about a problem, try to solve it. Taking that walk, again, was the key to him coming up with a lot of big ideas that he had, and he contributed to that walking. Now, along those same lines is something called lucid dreaming. Now, it's not something I've actually done, but I have read about, and a lot of big name people have actually done this and use it to creatively solve problems and things that they were trying to do. Again, one of them was Albert Einstein, another one was Nikola Tesla. They would actually go into this lucid dreaming state where they weren't quite dreaming, they weren't quite awake, and they would use it to solve problems. Now, I can't say again that I've actually gotten into these lucid dreaming states, but there have been a lot of times where I've gone to bed thinking about a problem, trying to solve it, again, whether it be a design problem or a programming problem, and I would either wake up in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning, and all of a sudden it would just come to me. I would just have the idea of what I needed to do to solve that. Now, this doesn't happen every time, but again, kind of putting yourself in that state takes you out of your current environment and into one that could help you better solve the problem. Now, there was a book that I read that was really interesting. It was called Autopilot by Andrea Smart, and what it basically talked about was they did these experiments on people where they would put them in an MRI machine and they'd ask them certain questions, math problems, trivia questions, and things like that. And they'd analyze the brain and where it became active and how it became active. And to test as a control, they would have the person just laying there, not being asked questions. And they actually found that while just sitting there and resting, different parts of the brain actually became almost more active than when it was being asked questions. So sometimes just stopping and thinking and having that time to yourself, your brain can become more active and help solve problems in more of a subconscious or even unconscious state. Now, this was kind of a cool one that I saw on the TV show Brain Games, and I actually use it a lot for myself, trying trying to solve problems, but they say to actually think like a child. So what they did is they sat a person down with a very random object and said within 1 minute come up with as many different applications you can think of for this. And it may have just been something very simple like a square or a rubber band. And as an adult, they would sit there and think of very practical uses for it and come up with like 4 or 5 different options. Then they were told, okay, now think like a child. Think about all the different things that a child might think of that you could use this application for. And a lot of times they were able to come up with 3 to 4 times as many different applications for that same thing that they didn't come up with a few minutes ago. So again, thinking like a child, you can actually break out of the kind of norms and mainstream ways that people think, and they think it's a very practical way. Whereas again, thinking like a child, you can be very unique and broad, and just kind of the sky is the limit on what you're thinking of. And if you apply that same kind of concept to your, again, design or your music or your writing, you can break out of the rut that you were stuck in before. Now, one of the most unique ways to hack the brain into being more creative is something I'm actually starting to try right now. It's kind of a simple concept, but it's a way to wake up your brain first thing in the morning and make it more active, more creative, and actually it helps with memory too, is what they're saying. Again, I've only tried it a little bit so far, and so far I've liked the way that it works. Now, but I want to give it a little bit more time before I make a full judgment call on how it works. Now, this is an article that I was reading about where there was a book that I guess John McEnroe, the old tennis player, his sports psychologist came up with, and it's a very interesting concept. It's very simple, very basic. What you do is when you first wake up in the morning, before you even get out of bed, you do this little kind of 5-minute test. And what it is, the first thing that you do is you count backwards from 100 to 0. Now you just do it as fast as you can. You don't stop. If you kind of skip a number, you screw up or whatever, you just keep going. You're not saying it out loud. That's going to make you sound crazy. So just kind of think it in your head. Try to count backwards as fast as you can. And what that does is first just kind of wakes up the brain a little bit. Now, the next thing you do is you go through the alphabet, A through Z, and you come up with a noun for each of those letters. So you would start off with like A, apple, B, banana, C, carrot. Different things, whatever they are, it can be completely random. Again, just nouns, person, place, thing, or idea for each letter of the alphabet. Now, you don't just think about the object when you're thinking about it for that letter. This one you can spend a little bit more time on, but don't just think about it. You want to actually imagine it. You want to look at the shape, the color, the size, all the different aspects of that object that you're thinking of. Now, what this does is it actually gets the right brain, the left brain, starting to talk together simultaneously and becoming a little bit more active. Now, once you're done with that, go ahead and take 10 deep meditative breaths and then go ahead and start your day. And what this is supposed to do is just make the left brain and the right brain talk together, become more active, and it's supposed to help with both memory and creativity. So hopefully the next time you run into one of these creative blocks, you can use one of these techniques to break out of it and be a little bit more creative. Now, I'm going to have all these listed on the website, so go ahead and check out stupidsimplehacks.com, and you'll see the podcast number 8. Where you can get all this information and a little bit more, or you can even leave me a message if you have questions about this. All right, thanks and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Stupid Simple Hacks. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast and continue learning to better hack your website, business, and life.